think our last question here is just like the long-term repercussions of like this like toxic like encounters as like elite athletes. And I think we touched on a lot of that. Just like Katie Kelly was saying like about her injury and what I was saying about my injury. But was there like any other thing that you think you can think of that like really kind of sat with you for like a long time before you really like dug through it and like figured out that that was the wrong way to think about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much of my belief system around how I used running to try to avoid or supplement or somehow take up the entire space of my self-image and self-worth and personal value. um Really, I wish I would have like known to address that earlier. I would have been a more successful runner, a less injured runner, and a better whole person, a more complete person all around. And what was the rest of the question, Jackie?
It was just like the long-term repercussions of your like toxic
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
And yeah, in college, like, looking back, which I never would have known at the time, I was really struggling with an eating disorder and disordered eating and disordered thinking around food. And like that was a repercussion of my like buying into some toxic beliefs about what it looked like to be a runner, and that I was too big to be a runner, and that there was this somehow ideal standard that I was always going to chase, but never going to catch, and never going to be successful with. So, if I didn't realize at the time that my like self-esteem was all hinged on the next run that I did. That was really toxic for me, and I think I carried that energy forward with me to other people. And that's painful to think about, that I would have influenced somebody else to think and act in a way that's bad for them and inconsistent with my values now. um so yeah, the toxicity of sport, like, I think it has generational repercussions, and I think that's why I'm seeing women in the clinic say the same thought viruses that I once believed.
such a good term, thought
Years,
virus.
yeah,
Yeah.
years, decades later. Like, so I think it's a generational phenomenon that we keep passing down, and I'll be damned if I continue to pass it down, or if I pass it down to my daughter. So that's what is fueling me now, is that I cannot continue to pass on this toxicity to myself or to others.
Mhm. It's a big motivation to change, that's for sure, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Nicole, how about you?
You asked the question again.
Yeah.
I noticed that whenever I'm like in a situation where it's all women, it's like the first time that we get to just like listen to someone without someone else interrupting them. Like we
Yeah.
might interrupt each other, but like there's not a guy telling you what they know more than you.
Yeah.
We're all
Yeah.
just
We're just like no, I get
like I
it.
listen to your answers, but can you tell me what the question is?
Yeah.
Because I don't remember.
Yeah, because I kind of started from the middle. It's because we did touch on this a little bit already, but do you think you've suffered any long-term repercussions from your toxic encounters as an elite athlete?
Oh yeah, I mean, like especially the stuff at the end. I still struggle around consistently, and part of it's because I feel like I have like a sacrifice hangover. Like I've sacrificed so much for so long. I just the idea of being like it's really cold and like it's dark out and I have stuff to do. Like I don't want to go for a run, and then that's at odds with like, but I do want to be running. So I don't know how to unpack that, but um, like yeah, the perfectionism. Like I still am like, oh well, if I commit to running, it has to be some kind of commitment. Like I don't know how to like commit between that running and like trying to make an Olympic team. Like
Yeah.
I can help other people do that. I don't know how to help myself do it right now. Like if I like start running, like I'm gonna run 3 days this week. And I'm like, oh, eventually I have to run 4 and I have to run 5 and then I have to run more each of those days. Like, yeah, I can totally help someone else not do that. But I can't, like, I still am like, it's got to look a certain way. It doesn't. It just should be fun. And then, yeah.
No, that's good.
Yeah, that one sucks. That's my most recent one. That's just right here, right now.
Yeah. No, I definitely can relate to that. Yeah, so like for me, I guess I'm still like I'm aspiring to change, and I'm aspiring to not have these rigid structured ways of living. And I'm doing such a better job of it, so I have to like pat myself on the back for that. But
You
it's
are.
been
Okay.
thank you. Thank you. I think a lot of it, like we were talking about in the last episode, is just like a lot of just like anxiety, getting that out in a way that is like structured, and I have to live my life like this. And if you guys don't get on this time, then I have to leave at this time and I have to go to bed at this time. You know, I mean, like all of that rigidness has it has left. So like that is really good. I'm working on that. And then I'm just now working on the being like doing more is better. So it's just been a really long unlearning of um, what is a proper way to train, and like how you should feel and all of that. And so, and really paying attention to how you feel. So I think other than like my injuries that were old injuries that that I'm like kind of working on right now, um, I think we can. I think that the good side of this is that we did have these experiences, and like Katie was saying, we can help others not go through this. And so, and we can also work on ourselves to change our perspectives so that we can kind of get ourselves out of this. And so, those two things, like, yeah, I'm still suffering the repercussions, but I'm also actively like changing how I think about running and how I perceive athletics, and that I can just go and like run and it's okay, like whatever happens, and just enjoying that moment. And also trying to, something that I've been working on for a couple years now, is just really trying to be in that moment and not trying to think about all the other things that I should or need to be doing. So yeah, I think there's positives in this, even though we can tell people what not to do. And I think too, like I want to close this, and I don't really want to talk about necessarily like toxic things. So I think maybe if we kind of share something, maybe a moment or a breakthrough that you've had recently that was something that either like empowered you or like changed your perspective. It could doesn't have to be that recent, but maybe if you want to like share that. I know it's kind of putting you on the spot. Katie, do you want to go first?
Yeah. My breakthroughs have been a lot of small breakthroughs along the way since I left college. And unfortunately, I did feel like at the time I left college, I had to completely disengage from running. And for me, that was the best choice at the time. And I needed to find a healthy way back to it. And I think I did. And that was a small breakthrough. And, I've been able to identify like some toxic qualities that I believed in, or toxic values that I had. And that was a breakthrough. Like believing that I had to either run or work out every day at 3 o'clock, like I did in college. Like we would meet at 3 o'clock on the dot. So like breaking that habit, that was a breakthrough. And just all these small breakthroughs over the last, when did I graduate? In 2008, over the more than a decade later, accumulate to build me into the person that I've always wanted to be, and that maybe I could have been earlier if I hadn't bought into these toxic myths about appearance and identity and training, from an early age. So I don't have a like a real momentous breakthrough. But there's just been all these little victories along the way, that I never could have imagined, like the healthy person that I am today being so happy, 15 years ago. Like I honestly wouldn't have thought that was possible, that I wouldn't have anxiety around food, and would be okay if I didn't run for a while. And both those things are true. I have a healthy relationship with food, and I feel like a whole person if I don't run. So though I think those have been the biggest breakthroughs along the way for me, that have really paved the way for me to continue to run and continue to love running and want other people to love running. Because without that work, I think I like maybe would have wanted to disengage from running completely and write it off as like this really disordered, toxic time in my life. And there were toxic things going on, that I was experiencing through running culture, but also through intrinsic values that I was buying into. And it's just not as simple to say that, oh, it wasn't me. It was, everything around me or whatever. So, um, I'm just really, I don't think 2008 Katie could have imagined the strong woman that 2021 Katie is. And I think I'm really proud of that. And I think that's been a big breakthrough. Those little breakthroughs along the way have gotten me to this point.
Yeah, it's awesome. How about you, Nicole?
Yeah, I got so excited listening to Katie's answer that I'm like, what was mine? Yeah, I don't know. So many. I guess maybe one of the bigger ones is, and I don't know how recent it is. I guess I'm still working on it. Is that like I feel like it says something about like how toxic those messages can be and how long lasting they can be if I still pick them up at the end of my professional running career. Like as an adult, like regardless, obviously my mental health wasn't great and that made me more susceptible to it. But like I feel like that shows you how toxic some of these things can be. And like, but realizing that like I believed those things because like those were the messages I was receiving. And I think kind of just realizing that like I'm right about a lot of things I think about myself, like the good things or like the way things should be done. Like there's an intuition or a knowledge, like, and that like so many times I was right and then I listened to other people and it was detrimental for me. And just yeah, like I should just be listening to myself more often. And I think my peer, like my good friends would be like, oh, you do that, you're good at that, but like not good enough. Like, it's just gotten me into trouble where I'm like, well, maybe they're right. But I'm like, no, I knew I should or shouldn't do that thing. Like I just like shot myself in the foot by like not listening to me and listening to someone else. Like, and that, yeah, that's probably my biggest one right now. Still in process, but very important.
Yeah, that's a really good one. To listen to your gut, because you're right. Most of the you should be right about yourself because nobody else is a better expert than yourself. I think my most recent breakthrough is going back to like what we were talking about, being like tough enough and not trying to take challenges from other people, and like put them on myself, because I have a really hard time not just stepping up to any challenge that comes across. And when you're trying to be good at everything, then you're bound to fail at one of those things. So that's been one of mine. And also just not like, it's something that's been like a really long process for me, but not being so regimented about everything. So like kind of what Katie was saying. I almost called you Katie Kelly again. But I really like, I find myself in times of stress where I will like worry about like what I'm eating more so. But I feel like this time is different. Like at least I'm like being like, am I at a point where I haven't run in a while? Like I know it's not that long, but like this is a point where I would normally like be stressing out or something about it, and I'm not. I'm able to just be like fine, like being able to manage it. And it's been I think before I would have tried to do a bunch of other workouts and everything else, but I'm being fine with just trying to get better and trying to focus on going to acupuncture or whatever else. And like taking that time off, you know, part of it is I spent like whatever $100 on acupuncture. I'm gonna damn well get my use out of it, but also, you know, like I'm like trying to actually get better, and I know that if I just try to keep pushing through it, that it's not going to help it. So I'm still working on that part, but I know that I can like what Nicole was saying. I know I can trust myself enough to know that I am tough enough. I don't need to prove that to anybody else. So the good thing about this is that I think we like can improve, but I also think there does need to be a big overhaul and change in values. And I think, like Nicole was saying, like when I want to say that when women come into coaching or are more in coaching roles, like we don't need to be in a place where we're leading like men. We can reinvent that leadership and like change that to be working on like emotional health and other ways. We don't need to lead like the predecessors were leading. And there's value in all kinds of leadership. So I just wanted to thank both Katie Kelly and Nicole Bush for being on today. I think this was a great panel. So if you guys have any other topics that you would like to see the Period Roundtable talk about, please like message below. Otherwise, thank you for watching. And